What is going on, Colts Nation? Welcome back to another episode of Bring the Juice. Guys, in the midst of the wildness that was going on yesterday, some of you may have seen we're doing a bunch of Pacers content yesterday, so hence why we never really got a chance to do this video yesterday and really kind of talk about it yesterday when, the feelings were going crazy. In case you haven't already heard, Jim Irsay, owner of the Indianapolis Colts, passed away peacefully in his sleep yesterday at the age of 65. I don't really know if anyone definitively knew what was going on. I think ultimately just he never really fully recovered from the last incident that he had a year and a half ago. But nevertheless, Jim Irsay leaves behind a bunch for his, 3 daughters that he has. And, obviously behind in the Colts fandom here. I mean, Cody, I think it's reminiscent of Jim Irsay that when this news broke out, obviously there was sadness, but a lot of people immediately jumped to talk about their stories of Jim Irsay. I think a lot of people think that, they're these billionaires. Some of them probably don't care that much about all this stuff. But, I mean, just the amount of people that, whether it was in the national media or the local media or just online in general, talking about the influence that Jim Irsay had on their lives. I think it's very telling of the type of person that he was, that despite some of the flaws he may have had, I mean, this was a guy that genuinely was passionate about football and was an extremely caring human being.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, you hear the different stories, like you said, about people who Jim truly impacted in his life, whether it was former players, whether it was, just different people throughout the years. I know I actually heard a story today about there was, some people who would do, they would do like some, I guess, some housework or whatever for the Irsays, right? They would do all that kind of stuff. And whenever those people would be employed, Jim Irsay would always send their kids, if they stayed employed and they got good grades, he'd pay for their entire college tuition, which is just insane and really a really cool thing. And that's just a glimpse into the generosity of Jim Irsay, right? And he's truly unique. He was so unique in just how he was as an owner compared to a lot of owners, because you just got the sense that beyond just a business professional, he was a fan. He was a true fan of the game of football. He loved the game of football, and that's not always the case with some of these owners nowadays in the NFL.
Well, and that's a great point, Cody, because Cowherd actually mentioned this on his show today. He was talking with Chris Ballard about him and said that the Indianapolis Colts have always felt kind of very family oriented in regards to how it works. And, not every NFL franchise is like that, Cody. Not every NFL franchise, you go places and the owners are so hands-on with everything and creating this environment of, stability, right? And, when you're in a small market like Indianapolis, you have to find ways to get people to want to stick around, right? And one of those ways to do that for a small market, if you don't really have the things that appeal to young men who are just out to chase women and make money, the other way you figure that out is how do you create a family-oriented environment to make people want to settle home in Indianapolis? And that was pretty much what Irsay and the Colts have done for the longest time.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, just a guy that genuinely cared. I mean, you saw Jim Irsay, multiple players who made the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Jim Irsay was the one that they asked to do it, right? Which is just that's huge. And just I don't know if you've seen Pat McAfee's reaction, but just very much just so grateful for Jim Irsay and the human being that he was and the impact that he had on Pat's life and so many others. I mean, you could go on from the different stories of Jim's generosity. And like you said, he wasn't a perfect human. He had his demons, he had his things for sure. But at the end of the day, Jim Irsay made an impact on this community, on the people around it, and just in the football world in general. I mean, Jim Irsay is a huge reason why the Colts still are in Indianapolis today, because he believed in it, he made it happen, and kept Indianapolis, made them a football town. Because you remember, Indianapolis, Indiana wasn't a football town all the time, right? And Jim Irsay, under his leadership, he helped turn Indianapolis into that, right? And now that's why we're here today, is because of the impact that Jim Irsay made, right? And just how much he believed in, bringing a franchise to Indianapolis and keeping it around. Because, the Colts weren't good for a while, right? And Jim Irsay stuck with it, and here we are so many years later, and the impact is still felt today by the things that Jim Irsay did all those years ago, and just the way that he's helped continue to be a voice in the NFL world. It's just been phenomenal. And so, there's so much you can say, but ultimately it's just a really good dude, a really flawed but really good dude that you knew that he loved the game, you knew that he loved people, and those are the things that matter the most at the end of the day.
I really do hate that I never got to actually meet the man. I mean, to be completely honest, and I've interacted with him a few times on social media. I know you have too, and a few different people definitely have. Pat McAfee brought it up on his show that, it got to a point where he didn't know if he's speculating that Jim Irsay felt like he could do more for the Colts community, and that with his social medias, he just started giving stuff away. I mean, remember Jim Irsay, had those contests, Cody, where, he'd give people $100 for, winning if they answered something right. And then, he started doing the schedule giveaway. He started sending people to the Super Bowl. He sent people thousands of dollars for this and that. There was even a guy that I saw a story on social media. He said he was asked by Jim Irsay to just never make it public until, at another time. But he said that, there was a player that he represented and said that Irsay practically begged the player and that guy to let him pay for the funeral. And he was respectfully told no, but wouldn't take no for an answer. He just wanted to do right by that said player. I don't even remember the whole story of it, but I mean, again, it just goes to show you, there's the notion nowadays, Cody, the billionaires are all out for themselves. They just care only about themselves. But I just see so many of these things where it's he just is the exact opposite of what you would expect a guy with billions of dollars to have, right? We remember the killer whale thing, the orca in SeaWorld he was trying to get set free, that sort of thing that was happening. Obviously, we talk about the giveaways. I mean, again, it's just so hard to just see that a positive presence in a guy like that is just gone from this world so soon. I mean, it's truly a sad day for, Colts fans, but now we know that his daughter, Carly's going to be running the team, at least for the time being. Don't know if she will continue to run it after this season. I don't know how everything's going to go with that. But yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting to see how the Colts navigate this circumstance with Irsay passing and now his daughter's taking over this.
And who knows? I mean, from what we've understood, they may have already been doing it behind the scenes for a while. We don't know 100% what's going on there, but yeah, it will be fascinating to see moving forward what that does look like. Does she take that role on permanently? Like, I know she's been doing a lot of stuff the last couple of years, being on the field, having a headset, all that kind of stuff. So I'm curious what that'll look like and if her role will specifically be filling Jim's shoes 100%. Moving forward, and if she's going to be the person long term, well, what's the plan there? I'm not entirely sure, but we'll have to see on that. But yeah, definitely lost a good man in Jim Irsay, and he was always kind to us. And the interactions we had online with him, unfortunately, never met him in person, but he definitely was somebody that we definitely felt the support from, which is great. And I mean, how many owners do that? Honestly, like It's not a lot. That's very rare to have a person like that, like you said, a billionaire who, let's face it, we're just fans, but a guy that genuinely cared about the fan base, genuinely cared about people who loved his team. And yeah, you just can't replicate that stuff. So yeah, shout out to Jim Irsay. Prayers for the Irsay family in this tough time. And we'll have to see, man, from a Colts perspective and then just a team perspective moving forward, what does happen.
Yep, definitely. Again, guys, it was sad to hear that news, and especially with I remember I was literally just sitting right. I was sitting right here. I was scrolling Twitter right before the Pacers game, and I was about ready to go live, and then I saw that, and then I was in shock. I couldn't believe it. But yeah, Colts Nation, we will not forget Mr. Jim Irsay, the Colts owner since 1997 when he took over from his dad. Actually, the youngest owner ever at the time was only 37 when he took over the team. So definitely a lot of milestones, very well respected amongst the NFL community. Absolutely love it, but we will remember Jim Irsay, and we'll see where we go from there. But let us know your guys' thoughts on this. Thank you guys again so much for all the support. We greatly appreciate it. And as always, go Colts.